And to answer that, I'm joined now by GT Communications founder Gemma Tognini and Sky News contributor Sam Crosby. Welcome to you both. Gemma, what do you think about what we saw in Canberra today?
Well, it's shameful, and the Australian people got shortchanged. Of course it's not right to guillotine those bills. Of course it's not right to stymie debate on legislation. It is absolutely the 180 degrees from what the Senate is there to do, from what the Houses are there to do. They are there to formulate legislation that is fit for purpose, and the Senate, in theory, is supposed to be full of, fine minds and pure souls who review legislation to ensure that it is there to benefit you and I, who, let's remember, pay the bills, pay the wages of these people. Unfortunately, I find myself agreeing with Mr. Keating. It's become unrepresentative swill.
Well, one of the bills that's in the Senate tonight is the social media ban on under 16s. Sam, this is overwhelmingly popular with parents, but then it suddenly became controversial when there was this suggestion that everyone, not just kids, would have to put a digital ID to use the internet. What do you think about this? Have the politicians put enough work into looking at how this piece of legislation will actually work before they've rushed it through?
I guess all we can say is I hope so. I hope so. Look, this is world first legislation. You're absolutely right. The parents of Australia are very much on board with this. I say as a parent of a 12-year-old that we are going to have to kick off TikTok and social media. I'm not necessarily looking forward to those conversations that we're having, but I think we can all agree that it's a good thing to do in the long run. I think with any legislation, but especially legislation of this nature that's never been done before, I think we need to be aware that we may need to come back and revise and change it in time if it's not working exactly the way that it had been intended. I understand that digital ID is now off the table, and that's not happening, which is good. But if there are other issues that arise as we go, I think we have to be open and honest about it and say, okay, we'll come back and look at it, but let's try something. I guess that's the message coming out of this.
I haven't heard that the digital ID is off the table.
I haven't heard that either.
I spoke to Matt Canavan on my way in tonight, and he thought it was still on the table then.
I checked all the news wires before I came on air with you, because that's what we do. I haven't seen anything to confirm that. If that's the case, that's great.
Where are you getting that from, Sam?
Look, I picked it up early this morning reading something or another. I can't remember.
I literally spoke to Matt Canavan.
I'm certainly not an expert in this field.
And he said that he had, initially understood that it was going to be a popular policy, but his understanding is that there still was this digital ID issue. What do you think?
I think it's tremendously fraught a space to go into. And I think two things. I think that the federal government is lurching towards the break, is frightened of its terrible performance in the polls, the weakness of the leader, the weakness in leadership, perceived weakness in leadership of Mr Albanese and Mr Bowen. And look, this legislation, I don't disagree with Sam that something needs to be addressed in terms of social media usage, but you don't come in and turn it into digital IDs by stealth and all of these other things. And there are so many legitimate reasons that children under 16 need to be on social media. Kids who are in remote areas, in the bush, messaging apps with their parents, things like that. Don't get me wrong, I agree in principle, but I do not believe this legislation is the answer. It's the same if you want to give an analogy, The Voice, right? There is a systemic problem of disadvantage in this country that needs to be addressed. I didn't personally believe that that was the way to address it. There is a problem with how young people are affected by social media. The harm is not disputed, but this legislation is not the answer.
All right, that debate will continue, although it does look like it's going to pass the Senate tonight.